Let's now bring in SABC News, a senior reporter, Canny Maphanga, who has been following this story in court for us. Canny, a very good afternoon to you. So let's take a couple of steps back.
Yes.
What exactly is this court case about? We know, of course, that the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution approached the court,
Yes.
and that's why we're here now.
Essentially, good afternoon to you, Nati, and to the viewers at home. We are centered on Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, protecting, upholding, and defending that particular portion which speaks to the human rights that are afforded to all who live in South Africa. Those are your basic human rights, your right to dignity, your right to life, etc. It is against that premise that the application was initially brought on Saturday to the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria because of the utterances made by the minister in the presidency regarding what was perceived to be the stance that government was taking towards the suspected Zamazamas that were underground, and that, you know, the statement very well that was made by Ms. Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, the minister in the presidency, speaking to, smoking them out, aid not being sent, comments of that nature which were seen to be in direct conflict with the Constitution with respect to the Bill of Rights, the right to life, because the assumption was that they would be left underground basically to fend for themselves, and of course that would risk their lives, and that is the premise upon which the application was brought. Of course, the courts on Saturday would have recognized the significance of this issue and then granted those interim measures to ensure that those Bill of Rights were safeguarded as the rescue operations are ongoing there in the Northwest. And of course, we're seeing some miners, it's unconfirmed the numbers, that are now coming to the surface following that interim order that was issued.
Yeah, I mean, will the order, once this, of course, this case is finalized, will the order have material impact if granted, given the fact that we are seeing developments from at least the rescuer side? We're seeing food in some certain instances going into, underground. We don't know at this point in time how many of those miners actually want to come out.
Yes.
You will find that some of those miners that are trapped, those that are actually not receiving food and water or hadn't been for months now, actually want to come out.
So this is an opposed application. There are conflicting version of events from the applicant as well as the respondents. It is the respondents' view that there are no fundamental rights that are being infringed upon, and that the miners are essentially not trapped and that they are able to make their way to the surface. I think the council cited over 1,000 that have been able to make it to the surface. They've also cited that the humanitarian aid, that is the water, the food, etc., has been provided to those suspected Zamazamas underground. However, it's clear that the applicants still hold a different view, that this is a life and death issue. That is what they're alleging in the courts, and that they need these Chapter 2 rights to be safeguarded in order to ensure that our Constitution is upheld and the government's obligations and duty to carry out those rights as well and protect and preserve those rights is upheld as well in this complex issue, which is a prominent feature of South Africa's landscape and is a common occurrence where they have to deal with miners that are underground or are trapped underground or whatever the circumstances are, and how to approach that issue. So where it started was the perceived official stance, and where we are now, it looks like that these suspected Zamazamas are coming to the surface and there is that humanitarian aid. And in the absence of any violation of those Bill of Rights, because they're not asking for anything outside of Chapter 2 preservation. So outside of that, I'm not sure what other order you would need, because the interim order remains in place. And if they are successfully able to preserve those rights, I'm not sure what else you could get out of it, because that order doesn't stop these government entities that have been cited in the application from performing their functions in terms of the Constitution as well, because they are viewing this as an active crime scene and are dealing with it as such. However, this application was not centered on evading arrest or anything of that sort. It was simply centered on Chapter 2, that is the Bill of Rights, and preserving those rights.
And I'm glad you mentioned that last part. So in other words, the applicant is not saying what the police is currently saying, that once those miners surface, they will be arrested. They'll be processed, then they will be taken to court at some point in time. They are not saying that that's what they're trying to prevent, correct?
Absolutely not. The applicants are not trying to prevent the dealing of the alleged criminality on behalf of the SAPS. All they are saying is that the humanitarian aid must be provided and the suspected Zamazamas must be treated in a humane when dealing with this issue of, or complex issue of illegal mining in the country. However, with respect to government entities and how they carry out their functions, that is not in question before the court.